You can't just help but dance to our theme song. Like, seriously, it's so
I have
good.
this weird background. That's one from one of my games. No, it's supposed to be. It's
No, it's not.
it's supposed to be this.
There we go. See, if I add a background, my video is going to get all choppy, and that's not going to be
That's
great.
okay. Got one for both of us, so there you go.
Yes, pimp us out with this logo. Hi, Internet. This is going to be an interesting review, but we're here to have a good time. All you Bi-Conics wrestling nerds out there, thank you for tuning in to another live stream of ours. Me and my TNA co-host, or one of them, I should say. If you couldn't already tell from the scrolling ticker at the bottom, we are here to review the TNA No Surrender 2024 PLE for TNA Wrestling that took place in Louisiana this past Friday, February 23rd. It's really weird because the pay-per-view happened Friday and we're reviewing it now. Trust me, we were busy this weekend at the Bi-Conics because the TNA boys had No Surrender. WWE boys had Elimination Chamber last night, or this morning if you chose to stay up until 2 a.m. in the morning to watch it on Saturday. I did not because I wanted to see. But this is going to be an interesting review because, as I said, my name is Mikey El Jefe himself here. Joined with me is one of my TNA wrestling co-hosts over at the Takedown Truth. You know him, you love him. You can find him reviewing TNA and NXT with me. I have Will, also known as Papa Oso around these parts. Will, thank you for staying up late to review this with me.
Of course, always.
Love it. Unfortunately, we are missing our other co-host, Andrew. He's been busy with theater life and also shared some exciting news with us, which I'm super happy for him and his family are expanding. So that is a beautiful thing, as always. But fret not, Internet. He will be back next week. I am super excited to have him. It's really only been 2 weeks, but Andrew, we love you, missed you, and we're super happy to have you back. We're also really excited that you let us be a part of your life and share some awesome news. Speaking of sharing things, before we jump into this pay-per-view proper, let's just do some housekeeping out of the way so that way we can just talk about this pay-per-view in general. You can, if you enjoy all the stuff we do, we are doing this live stream via Facebook, Twitch, YouTube. We're even live streaming this on Twitter somehow. It's I don't know how the internet works, but we are plastered our faces all over the place. But you can also find all this stuff on the YouTube channel. You can follow us all over the social medias at the BC WrestlePod that we have displayed underneath our names here on the screen, which is really, really fun to watch. And of course, if you can't watch our beautiful faces, you can listen to our beautiful voices as we have audio versions of all our reviews, and you will get an audio version of this review as well. So you can take us along for long car rides, for when you're at work, when you're trying to study for a test, or if you're taking care of business on the porcelain throne. We don't care where you listen to us, just listen to us. And then, obviously, excitingly, we're going to keep mentioning it until we get close to it. The Bi-Conics are going to be live and in person for the first time at the New Jersey WrestleCon, May 18th, May 19th in Middleton, New Jersey. We are going to be there. We're going to have a table. Come say hi to us, chat with us. We're going to have some fun merch. We want to meet you guys that are in New Jersey. And hopefully we can also say hi to some of our favorite wrestlers that are planning to be there. If you watch this, please be there because I want to say hi to you. Please.
That's not stalkery at all.
I mean, that's very fair. But no, I'm super excited to kind of have us there. I would like to shout out Adolfo for, letting us know and kind of setting that all up for us. And then we've been working behind the scenes to get slowly ready for this. So I'm super excited. My goodness, it's going to come before we know it. Alrighty, Will. So before we get into the pay-per-view, we briefly mentioned this offline. So I would like to set the record straight. Before we get into this pay-per-view, I want to acknowledge the fact that this pay-per-view was live from Louisiana. And this is the first non-taped TNA thing post Scott D'Amore being let go from the company, getting fired from Anthem and from TNA Wrestling. We've already covered the extent of what happened, what went down. So we're not going to tell the whole story from the beginning. But No Surrender is the first non-taped TNA thing post Scott D'Amore being let go from TNA and being fired. And my biggest worry going into No Surrender was I was going to immediately tell the difference of Scott D'Amore not being there. But I have to say, I still want Scott D'Amore there. That's not going to change. But I was pleasantly surprised and happy that it didn't feel too obvious that things have changed. Now that the pay-per-view is over, we're going to see how the weekly shows go because we got 2 weeks until Sacrifice, which we'll be back here in 2 weeks covering that pay-per-view. And then the real test for this new version of TNA without Scott D'Amore is going to be after Sacrifice, when we have 5 to 6 weeks building to the next major pay-per-view for TNA in Rebellion, which is going to be taking place April 20th. But the reason I bring this up is because me and Will were talking before we went live that TNA locker room before the pay-per-view came on air and started for us watching at home, Eric Young led the TNA locker room, and they basically stated that the landscape for TNA has definitely shifted. Things are a little uncertain right now, and lots of people have questions. They are going to try their best to answer said questions, but the one thing that can be for certain, and this is Eric Young who's leading the charge and giving this promo before the pay-per-view went on air, that TNA is not going nowhere. They're going to continue to provide entertainment for those of us that have been supporting TNA, in this transition to be rebranded as TNA from Impact Wrestling. And the locker room is going to give it their all, and they're going to work through this uncertainty with us, but they ain't going nowhere, and there's no surrender with TNA. Eric Young is the perfect person you want to put in front of these people to assuage any worries, things like that, because this is a person who's been with TNA for the longest time. And honestly, not to say I wouldn't believe it if it came from somebody else, but for some reason I was like, Eric Young, I believe it is going to be okay. We're going to make it through together. And that ultimately was pretty much the pinnacle of that message, is that we know what's happening. We can't really address it. Otherwise, we're going to get in trouble, but we're not dumb either. We're not going to pretend that it's not. We are going to continue to support each other, which made me feel a little bit better after watching that. Now, I might change my tune given a couple of weeks once we start building to Sacrifice and Rebellion, but at least for No Surrender, it assuaded my fear before I started hitting play on this thing.
And I'm not a negative Nancy by any means, but I feel that we weren't going to see anything major happening in this pay-per-view. Because even the powers that be now understand that you can't just change something overnight and expect the fans to go with you. So I figured that this pay-per-view was going to be like what we were expecting, and it was. I mean, it came out the way I was hoping it would, and that there weren't any big major changes. But I think we're going to start seeing the changes in the weekly episodes, if there are any. Now, I'm saying that there are any. They may not change anything other than programming or whatever, but it'll be interesting to see in the weekly programs, because that's where they're going to start testing things. If they're going to start shifting something, that's where they're going to do it. They won't do it at a pay-per-view.
No, and I honestly agree with you. I don't think we're going to start seeing the shift until probably after Sacrifice, because like I said, we have about 5 to 6 weeks after Sacrifice to build towards Rebellion. So I think they're going to start doing small changes. So we'll see what happens. But one thing that we didn't really talk about on our review too is the fact that Anthem is kind of making questionable choices, because they chose to, enact Josh Alexander's extension clause. So Anthem decided to re-sign Josh and to extend his contract for a year. So according to Fightful, he was already signed for 2 years, I believe. So they decided that Anthem pulled the trigger to extend his contract. So now Josh is going to be there for the next 3 years, which is cool and everything. But I feel like since we were in the midst of Josh just starting his new contract, from a business standpoint, I understand, because Josh is a hot commodity. You don't want him going to other promotions. But after you fire the biggest cheerleader for this locker room, and then you proceed to pull that move, it doesn't look good, Anthem. And so I think they're realizing it's maybe we were coming in too hot too fast. But and I'm going to say this for a lot of this review tonight, only time will tell what's going to happen with that. But we cannot predict the future, but we can talk about what happened in the past. So let's just get straight into it. I love my little slideshows. It's aesthetically pleasing. But we are here to review No Surrender. Honestly, these are kind of the right people to pick for this on this poster, especially our girlies on the right, which we'll talk about them later, because that was the most surprising thing, but I was super happy for them. But let us just jump straight into it. So as always, like with most of these pay-per-views, we get a countdown to No Surrender shows. So the first 30 minutes before the actual pay-per-view goes on air, we had 2 pre-show matches. So we're going to talk about those before jumping into the main card. So the pre-show kicked off with a tag team match. We saw Speedball Mountain, the team of Mike Bailey and Trent Seven, taking on their eternal rivals as of now, the Rascals. So it is no secret, and I'm kind of going to throw my co-host under the bus a little bit, but like in a good way. So it's no secret that Will is kind of getting sick and tired of seeing the Rascals do rascally, wily things across the locker room, which I totally understand. And I'm kind of getting tired of it too. How, as much as I wanted Speedball Mountain to win this match, it makes sense that the Rascals won, especially because the numbers game is still working against Speedball Mountain. And Mike Bailey's not really injured, but they played up the fact that Mike Bailey had an injured, like his leg was hurting, and we saw the Rascals continue to go after it anytime Mike Bailey was in the ring. I was really surprised because I have to say I wanted more from this match, and maybe because I'm biased because I like Trent Seven, but Trent was kind of barely in this match. It was mostly Mike Bailey doing 2-on-1.
Yeah.
It's like, what happened? Trent, what happened?
Yeah. You know, again, and yeah, let me put it out there before someone comes hating on me. I like the Rascals. I think what they have created is great. It really is. You know, I love who they are. I love what they represent. I love them as you know, as the players themselves. The wrestlers, they've created this amazing tag team. But my big thing is now everything's becoming predictable. And I think that when things are become predictable, you have to switch things up. And like whenever they announced that the Rascals are wrestling, I immediately am like, okay, they're going to win by shenanigans. Done. And that's usually what happens. It's very rare does it not happen. You know, there's the occasional match where someone does beat them because for a storyline purpose. But for the most part, it's literally they come in, and we saw it in this match. You know, I mean, the Rascals were the Rascals, and it was like, okay, all right. I just want something different. I don't want them to change who they are. I don't want anything like that. But I want to see something new. I'm tired of, and I'm also, the other thing I'm tired of is that when their opponents fight them, their opponents are surprised when they do something that, you know, they're not supposed to. I'm like, how do you guys not know that the Rascals are going to cheat in any chance they can get?
Their name is literally the Rascals.
Yes, and it's so funny, and it's frustrating at this point that, and like I said, I always go back to that one with Rick Swan. I think it was when he like
Rich has been the only person to realize it's like, I watch what you guys do.
I know it's like, nope, you're not getting me with the spray paint, and they got each other, and it was like, that's what I see now. If in this match, if I had seen more of that, I would have been, and maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's the other teams that are frustrating me, not necessarily the Rascals. Maybe it's the other teams because they're so like, what? They're cheating? Yes. It's like, how many times? Mike Bailey, how many times have you wrestled the Rascals and they not cheated?
Specifically, like, you have had quite a few interactions with Trey Miguel, like, over the last couple of months or so. I was like, okay. So before we go down this rabbit hole of just nitpicking, so I agree with my co-host here. Anytime the Rascals are on screen, I know what I'm getting. I want a new dimension from them. Like, they could continue to be like little like turd heels. Yeah, to be little turd heels. But it's really funny to say this because we're watching grown people fight in a ring, like with these weird storylines. We suspend our disbelief with professional wrestling, but like there's a certain point I was just like, I know I'm suspending my disbelief, but come on. You need to tell me that Speedball Mountain hasn't like seen previous matches the Rascals have been involved in. Now, thankfully, the spray paint didn't come into play here.
True.
Because what ended up happening, and you know, going through the match again in my notes, I have to give it to the Rascals for this one because they played offense and they played smart because they kept Trent Seven out of the ring as much as possible to isolate Mike Bailey because Mike Bailey had a leg injury, and I put that in air quotes because it's kayfabe. We know he's not really hurt, but the Rascals were smart in this match. They kept Trent out of the ring as much as possible. It was lots of 2-on-1, you know, continuing to hammer away at Mike Bailey's leg. That shooting star press from Trey Miguel was a thing of beauty. I was like, oh my gosh, it was great. And then, of course, the numbers game eventually caught up to Speedball Mountain because Steve Macklin came out when the ref was distracted to chop block Mike Bailey to allow the Rascals to pick up the victory. So, Rascals win. They're celebrating with Steve Macklin at the top of the ramp. Trent Seven, being the British dad himself, goes in checking on Mike Bailey for all this. And I was talking to Will before we went live. I think that if it's not at Sacrifice, I could see this being a television match leading into Rebellion. I think that Macklin and the Rascals are going to continue to run roughshod over Speedball Mountain, which then will prompt Nick Nemeth to come back, and then we get the 3-on-3 that the three of us have been talking about the last couple of weeks of what we would like to see where the story can go. I want Speedball Mountain to finally start winning some things, because even though they've only been losing they haven't lost too much, but I want to see them start picking up some steam, because I was like, I don't want them to job out to the Rascals, if that makes any sense.
I agree. I'm ready for Speedball Mountain to do to be more than just tertiary characters. Because right now I feel like they're completely sidelined. You know, it's like, well, we need these people to wrestle somebody. Oh, let's put Mike Bailey and Trent Seven in the ring with them. You know, they're like almost like an afterthought, and that's annoying, because they're both really good, and they're good together as a tag team. So I don't understand why. I mean, I get it, I guess, whatever, but I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get why you are sidelining such good talent. And I mean, I'm sorry, but I much rather would rather watch Mike Bailey and Trent Seven legitimately than have watched this match again. This match was not bad, but like you said, Trent Seven was barely in it, and I know they were focusing on, you know, annihilating Mike Bailey, knocking him out of the system as much as they can. But it's like, I would rather watch a match that is literally, you know, Speedball Mountain versus someone, as opposed to the Rascals versus, you know, I want them to be first. I want to see their names first. You know, it's like, I just feel like they're not being given their due. And, you know, for whatever that reason is, I don't know, because I'm not involved in the day-to-day, but it's annoying because they're so good. I'm sorry, but looking back, and I will still, to this day, I will refer to this match as when Mike Bailey fought Will Ospreay. That match alone should elevate these two to some kind of something status, because we know that Mike Bailey could whip butt. We know he can. And this match just made him look like he was nothing.
Yeah, and I think for me personally too, I know that Speedball Mountain is a newer tag team, and so they're kind of a makeshift tag team. But I feel that because we have gotten pretty much, they've been working together since Final Resolution back in December, so it's been about 2 months. I feel that we should be out of the makeshift tag team phase between Speedball Mountain. And so I know it served a purpose, because they're still kind of figuring out how they work together as a team against an established tag team like the Rascals. But I'm ready for them to kind of go beyond the makeshift tag team phase and start winning. And again, I think they're finally going to pick up some steam once eventually, you know, Nick Nemeth comes back, and then evens out the odds. He gets back at Macklin for, you know, attacking him a couple weeks ago. So I thought this was a fun match, but I'm ready to see Speedball Mountain start to pick up some wins and kind of leave the honeymoon phase of being a makeshift tag team. Because you're right. Now that I think about it, I'm like, how does Mike Bailey go from wrestling Will Ospreay to losing the Rascals? No shade to the Rascals, but I mean, it's Will Ospreay.
I agree. Like I said, I love the Rascals. Don't get me wrong. I do. I love them. I don't want the same old.
Right.
I want more from them. I'm bored with what they have now, because it's like they've been doing this since they've been in their inception, and it's like, okay, yeah, great, we get it. Now give me something else now.
Yeah, give me something more. Speaking of me wanting more, we get our second pre-show match, which sees the System being represented by Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers taking on the Time Splitters, which is Kushida and Kevin Knight. So I'm just going to put this out there. Between these two pre-show matches, this wasn't a good start for any of our heroes on this episode, like the faces in the countdown show. Both face teams lost to the heel teams. I will say this match was more evenly matched than the previous one that we talked to. I think this was a better back and forth. Again, I gotta say, I love Kushida, but Kevin Knight, man, he stole it from me, because, you know, Kevin Knight is your high flyer. And I don't want to say that Kushida did bad, But I feel that Kushida needs to be matched against someone who's going to keep up with him, because again, I'm going to harken back to the triple threat between Vikingo, him, and Saban for the X Division Championship at Hard to Kill. That to me is the type of opponents that Kushida should face. And Kushida and Kevin Knight are an actual tag team, so they were able to show that there. But man, again, Eddie Edwards and Brian Myers have kicked it into second gear, especially Eddie, man. Eddie, since coming out of that long feud that we had with him and Frankie Kazarian, which,
we don't have to revisit.
No, and we've already awarded it. And we here at the Bi-Conics have already awarded it as the worst feud of 2023. I don't care what the other boys said at the end of the episode. That feud went on for way too long. It was crazy.
Way too long.
But this was a fun match. This was more evenly out, of course. But man, this is one of my favorite moves recently, but the backpack stunner from the top rope.
This is another match that I was like, okay, I know who's going to win this. And I don't think that's necessarily anyone's fault. I think that's just because they're really trying to get the system kind of established, and they've got to win as many matches as possible. So I get that. I am kind of tired of Kushida not winning anything. Again, another great, and Kevin Knight, another great set of duo of wrestlers that just aren't going anywhere. And that's kind of frustrating. But again, you're right. Eddie, he's been on fire lately. And I love this new, whatever he's got going. I love this. His wife still annoys me, but he's great. And I think he and Brian Myers are a great tag team. I think they work well together. They communicate well together. Of course, Kushida and Kevin Knight did too. But I felt like I agree with you. I don't think Eddie and Brian were the right opponents for Kushida and Kevin. I think you're right. They need someone dare I say, but I don't know. I agree with you.
Yeah.
I agree with you.
There's one tag team that can match their aggressiveness that we'll talk about later, because it seems now that we're particularly done with our best of 3 series, that does open up, two of our tag teams.
Yeah. Yes. Oh my God.
We'll talk about my speculations too, because what happened for the TNA World Championship match and, the result of that, I think we're going to have everybody kind of start moving on. And I think, again, my biggest issue with this match, and I can't really complain about it because it's the thing that professional wrestling does. The system kind of just showed up at Hard to Kill with no explanation.
Yeah.
And so we have to give the system some wins in order to build up their credibility, to be like, we don't know their origin story. They just showed up at Hard to Kill one night, but they should be a force to reckon with. And, Shelly, Kushida, and Kevin Knight are the current 3 that are in this feud with them, to continually to, give them some wins to build up their credibility. But I think after tonight, I think everybody's going to move on to different things. So we'll talk about that. But I still thought this was a fun match. But again, I knew that the system was going to win. And it just sucks that Kushida and Kevin Knight had to take the L once again. But I will say this was a more even contention match than the first one, because both teams were actually given a chance to go. Everybody was active in it, and the numbers game didn't do anything. So that was our countdown show. So we get a video package to hype up No Surrender, and then we enter our first match on the main card, so we were told this past Thursday that we were going to get Eric Young versus Frankie Kazarian. Then it was announced on social media and on the countdown show, the pre-show, that there was now stakes involved in this match, because the winner of this match would go on to face whoever wins in the TNA World Championship match later in the evening at Sacrifice. So this is basically turned into a #1 contenders match, where the winner would get a title shot at Sacrifice in 2 weeks in Canada. So we saw Eric Young taking on Frankie Kazarian. And this was my first pleasantly surprised match of the evening because of 2 things. Number 1, I was really surprised to see Frankie Kazarian get so much of the offense in this match. Usually it's 50-50 on a good wrestling match. I want to say this was more like 70-30, maybe pushing it to 80-20, because Frankie was dominating for the majority of this match. And Eric Young did his I don't want to say did his best, because Eric Young did fight back. He wasn't looking weak here. But my second thing, what I really appreciated is how the finish went down. Normally, I don't like surprise roll-ups as finishers because it's like, it's a cheap way to do it. But from a storytelling perspective,
totally
and the commentary sold the moment too, because this new version of Frankie Kazarian, he wants to be the king of TNA. Like whatever he says goes. He thinks his ego is getting the best of him, and that's what cost him the match. Is because his ego got the best of him. He argued with the ref, saying that it should have been a 3 count, instead of a 2 count when he went to pin Eric Young, which allowed Eric Young to do a surprise roll-up to win the match. And Eric Young is going to try to compete for the TNA World Championship. And I was pleasantly surprised from this match. This was actually really good. While the wrestling was kind of hit or miss in terms of, because Frankie got most of the offense, I think this was one of my favorite. This was at the top of my top 3, top 4 matches of the evening, because the storytelling in this is Eric Young played it smart and fed into let Frankie's ego kind of be his downfall. Icarus flew too close to the sun, and he was able to take advantage.
Yep. Yes, I agree. This match, I was completely surprised by the ending of it. I thought for sure Frankie was going to win this one. I really did. Mainly because he dominated this match. I was like, holy goodness. I mean, he was fighting for blood. And I thought, but then of course in my empathetic soul was just like, oh, poor Eric. He's just getting beat down. He's just getting beat down so badly.
At one point I quoted Hamlet. This is like, Eric, it's like he hardly knew you.
Yeah.
I was writing a whole eulogy for him. I was like, this is going to be a bloodbath.
Yeah. And you saw it happen. You saw Frankie's ego get in the way, hubris, and then Eric Young took advantage of it. And I don't diss him for it. I'm like, absolutely. And I agree with you. I think the surprise roll-ups are kind of like a cheap way of doing things, but this worked. Because literally it was like, oh, I know what I need to do. Frankie needs to, I need to basically poke at his hubris. And that's what he did. And man, I've never been, and I love Frankie Kazarian, but I've never been so happy than when Eric Young won that match. Because I was like, yeah, you show him. After he beat you down, after he was your friend or whatever, and then he beat you down, you take that match from him. It's like, yes.
Also, get revenge for him sending Big Damo after you on the go. Yeah, like I said, the wrestling itself maybe wasn't necessarily the most mind-blowing thing, but it was a fantastic match between 2 veterans of the craft. But more importantly, I think the storytelling in this match made me more invested in this before, because this match salvaged Frankie could heel promo when he cut after attacking Young, and we got that heel promo, and it turned out to be a whole lot of nothing and paint by numbers. I'm the generic villain of the week, like a Power Rangers episode.
Yeah, it was bad.
But what I also really loved, and normally I don't condone violence, but I also love that hubris turned into anger, and Frankie Kazarian lost his mother tucking mind because he attacked the ref. He threw a security guard.
Yep.
He was fighting people left and right. And I was like, Frankie's going to make an appearance at Sacrifice. I bet you watch. That's going to happen. And then we're going to get some sort of crazy match at Rebellion between these two. Because I'm going to be honest. I'm super happy to see Eric Young get a title shot. Do I think he's going to win it? No. There's a slight bit of me, though, that would be really happy to see him win. But, I don't want to spoil before we get there who is the champion with the world title. But I don't think so, because we're still kind of young in this title reign of our world champion at this point. At first I was surprised to see this match open the main card, but this was a nice way to be. It was a good appetizer because I have to talking about this was like me on Adderall. This was nuts, because then we get our final match in the best of 3 series. So this is match 3 for the TNA World Tag Team Championship match, with each team winning 1 match apiece. This was the final to see who would become the championship. We had our challengers, GYV, the Grizzled Young Vets, taking on the champions, ABC. This match did not stop. Once that bell rang, it was go, go, go. Man. And these 4 men killed it. And honestly, this almost was my match of the night, because This is how tag team wrestling needs to be. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start, Will. I don't know where to start.
I was exhausted.
I was sweating and I didn't even do anything.
I know, me too. This match was what I really loved about this match is that you could tell both teams really wanted to win this match. And they were both, no matter what they're saying out loud, both of them were like, if we could lose this match, we cannot lose this match. So they were fighting for their very lives is what it felt like. And it was just go, go, go. There was not a dull moment. And what I mean by that is there was not a moment of like, nobody was still. Bodies were moving constantly and just all over the place. And of course, Grizzled Young Vets, man, they are like brutal, and it's like, and I love how ABC and Grizzled Young and GYV, their styles are so different and yet very similar because they're both teams are sort of like almost like street fighting is what it feels like a lot of times, and like these two groups got together in a dark alley somewhere, and then they're fighting it out in the alley. I would love to see that. Because I think these four would be super entertaining. I mean, after this match, I was like these four, they need to have another match with them and like, I don't know, something that's got to be crazy because I was so exhausted at the end of this match. I was literally just like, oh my gosh. So yeah. And I think I chose GYV to win this match, but I was totally fine with the ABC winning. I was totally cool with it. I really like ABC. I really do.
I love ABC. GYV put up a heck of a fight. And this match was given some time, which is what I wanted to see. I think one of my favorite moments is like, GYV gets set up to kind of give a DDT in the corner and we had Drake trying to dive with a missile drop kick, but then Ace Austin pushed him off the ropes and then choked Gibson with the scarf as like a fun visual. It's like
yeah. This match was fun and exciting,
good,
exhausting.
Yes, ABC hit the art of finesse to pick up the victory, and they won the third and final match, and so they retain their TNA World Tag Team Championships. As we mentioned before, now that it seems we're going to take ABC and GYV and make them go their separate ways for now, I would love to see GYV go up against Time Splitters because I think that would be a fantastic match. And honestly, with the system picking up as many wins as they can, I wouldn't be upset if ABC challenges the system, or the system challenges for the titles next. Only because I think ABC and the system with Brian Myers and Eddie Edwards would be a fantastic feud as well.
I agree.
The men's tag division, there's so many good men's tag teams in this division that I think really good. You have GYV, ABC, you have the Rascals, you have the system, and you even have the Good Hands too as like our jokey tag team too. Like there's so many good tag teams. This match was almost my match of the night when we get there, but this match had me tired. So I didn't write all the backstage segments we got because I only picked the ones that kind of like stood out to me in a little bit. So this is the first one where Macklin and the Rascals were celebrating backstage and they're talking their smack and basically says that Speedball Mountain doesn't have a chance, of taking them out. I was just like, the only reason I wanted to bring this up because it leads into my theory that Nick Nemeth is going to come back and is going to even the odds, and we're going to get something with dissects, which I'm super looking forward to. So now we're going to talk about probably the most decisive match of the evening, because at first I didn't like it upon first watching. And then I watched it again and thought about it. I was like, I didn't hate it as much as I thought I did, because if this leads to where I want it to lead, then I'm okay with this. I'm still struggling with this, but we get into PCO versus Khan. I will admit there was nothing inherently wrong with this match, but this was my least favorite match of the night. And that's only because we had DQ after only 4 minutes of wrestling. But then the beatdown and the match that happened, like the fight that happened afterwards, was actually really fun. I'm torn though, because I was like, I want to hate this match, but I can't because of what we got afterwards. And I'm hoping this sets up my Monsters Ball match that I want, man. Give me a Monsters Ball. Sorry, I'm violent towards Monsters Ball. But let's talk about the match before, the Ultimate Street Fighter, like back alley brawl that we got after the DQ happened. Because, this is your standard, like, big man slapping big man meat match. Like, these are two big boys. We're gonna fight each other. At first, I didn't want to take Khan seriously in his like checkered polo. I was like, bro, we got to get you better wrestling gear. But I was like, this was okay. Like, it's all right.
There wasn't anything spectacular about it. I mean, not really. I mean, it wasn't a bad match. It was just like, I mean, I love PCO. Anytime PCO fights, I enjoy it, because I know that there's going to be some kind of undeadness to it. But I don't know. I agree with you. I think this was probably my least favorite match of the night, even though it wasn't a bad match. It was probably my least because I don't think that it was necessarily. I don't feel that there's really any story to it. Like, it just sort of happened, No, in the grand scheme of things, it just kind of happened. I honestly thought this would be in the pre-show. I really did.
Honestly, if they had switched this with the system and the time splitters, I think that would have been a better choice.
Agreed.
And I wanted to hate this match more than I do now, because at first I was like, I wasted my time. This was a 4-minute match. Again, I wasn't expecting it to go long, but then I thought about it. I was like, no. Upon second viewing, I thought to myself, this is the right decision to go. You can only watch two big boys constantly hitting each other for so long. What I'm hoping this leads to, and I'm going to manifest it, and I don't care what nobody says, what I'm hoping this leads to is I want a street fight, but more importantly, I want a Monsters Ball. Give me a Monsters Ball match. I just want PCO to be our master of Monster Balls.
Yeah.
Because Monster Ball matches is where PCO shines. And honestly, I would love to see what Khan does in a Monsters Ball too. You have two monsters of men. And in a Monsters Ball match, anything goes. I'm hoping this takes it to the next stage where now it's like, oh, okay, so DQs are going to happen. All right, street fight or Monsters Ball. But let them tear each other to pieces. Literally, the next pay-per-view is called Sacrifice. Let them sacrifice their bodies and have a street fight or something of that extent. I'm hoping it leads to something that goes to the next step, the next level of match types. Because if this is a one and done, I was just like, okay.
Yeah, I agree with you. Totally. Absolutely.
All right. So we go from two men beating the tar out of each other to two teams of women beating the tar out of each other. Okay, I need to prepare myself because, listen, all 6 women that we got in this whole entire segment, I was just like, my girls, I love them so much. But it is also really nice that we got to see this match actually give some time, because next up was the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team Championship match. We had our girls, Masha Slamovich and Killer Kelly of MK Ultra, taking on the champions of Rosemary and Havoc of Decay.
This match was pretty kick-ass.
I was like, I knew it was going to be good, but then this is the third green flag as I'm giving it here, because I was truly not expecting MK Ultra to pick up the titles here, but I was pleasantly surprised. I was like, let's go.
Oh, I agree. I was shocked. I just think that MK Ultra, I mean, I know it hasn't been that long, but like, they lost and then they just disappeared. Like, we were constantly like, where are they? And I'm just glad they're back. I mean, I was excited and I'm happy for it because, yay MK Ultra, because we love you. Decay, we love you too. But I was pleasantly surprised. I was very shocked that Decay lost. I mean, I can't say it enough. When I was watching this match, after it stopped, I had to pause and had to sit there and think about it for a second. Because I was just like, did that just happen? I mean, like, seriously. I mean, we were talking about it before we went live, but I don't know where they're going. Now here's my fear. Here's my fear. Is now we've got MK Ultra back in the saddle, and now Decay's gonna disappear. And that's gonna kill me. I mean, because I love Decay. I love this whole new. They are awesome, and so I'm really kind of hoping they don't go the way of MK Ultra did when they. I want to see Decay fight some other people. It doesn't have to be for a title. I want to see them like come out and fight whomever. But I don't know. It was a great match. Love this match. Boy, howdy did I love this match. But it really did. It surprised me. It did totally.
And yeah. And one thing I will say is that normally I don't like titles flip-flopping between people like so quickly in succession, because like I said before, Decay won these titles at Hard to Kill and they've only had them for about a month or so. But what makes me a little more optimistic about it is what happens after the match, because MK Ultra go to continue to beat down on Decay. But then we have Danny Luna and Jody Threat, the team that I'm calling my unintentional lesbians, come in for the save. And so now it seems that we are going to be starting a program between MK Ultra and Danny Luna and Jody Threat, because in hindsight, leading into this match, Masha beat Jody, but remember, Killer Kelly lost to Danny Luna not that long ago. But if I gotta highlight this really quick, our buddy Andrew is on break from tech, and he's like, it's all about Luna Threats. That is what I want their tag team name to be now. Yeah. Luna Threats, please. That is so good. But I'm more okay with MK Ultra beating Decay, even though they haven't had the titles for very long, because now we're building towards MK Ultra and then the Luna Threats, as Andrew has coined them. We're calling them now the Luna Threats, also known as my unintentional lesbian. I love it so much, but I hope that Decay doesn't disappear from TV, because I feel that there are a few other things that we can do with them in terms of giving them storylines and feuds that don't have to be around the title. But I love this match, and I like seeing titles and title changes mean something at an event, even if this is not a big four pay-per-view, which I think is super important, because Lord knows other promotions have a hard time of making women's tag teams matter, and TNA has done a good job with making the Knockouts tag team division matter, even if it's only 3 teams right now, which hopefully that will change as we continue forwards, because I would love to see more women's tag teams make their way into the Knockouts division.
Me too.
So we go from there. So these first sets of matches were fun. You know, they set us up. They were a good time to be had. But then the next couple of matches, I was just like, my body was not ready for all the things that happened. And we start off the second half of the pay-per-view with probably the most hard-hitting match that I have seen. And that was Josh Alexander versus Simon Gotts. Jiminy H. Christmas, Will. This match was, oh my goodness. This match was so good. I will admit it did start a little slow for the first couple of minutes, but then they did anything and everything to leave welts, bruises, and maybe break a couple of ribs in the process. Jeez Louise, this was intense.
Yeah, this was another one of those I was exhausted afterwards. And I kind of figured, going into this, I really did. I was like, this is gonna hit hard. And boy, did it ever. The sheer power behind all of the hits from these 2 men was inhuman. That's all I can say. It was so... I thought for sure people were going to be taken out in an ambulance. I literally was like, someone is going to either get seriously injured because these 2 men want to destroy each other. This match was personal. There was nothing professional about this match. It was pure personal. And
this match was the embodiment of talk-ish, get hit.
This was truly a full around and find out match. And my jaw was on the floor. I wasn't prepared for it. I was not prepared. Man, it was a good match. It was so good. Of course, I think most of Josh's matches are pretty darn good for the most part. That's what I like about Josh. If you put him up against an opponent that is equal to him, the match will be unhinged. And boy, and it was.
I was also tired after this match, because this was a hard-hitting match. And oh my goodness, that combo finisher that Josh hit, with the backbreaker into a nasty-looking C4 spike for the win. This was an awesome match, and I thought this is super fantastic. And it continues to showcase that Josh Alexander is that dude. He's a reliable talent to have in TNA. And he always has really good matches. Within the last year and a half, 2 years, I can't really find a match that I didn't necessarily like from Josh. I really hope he sticks around for a little bit in TNA for a little bit.
I agree.
Because I would love to see them run it back one more time in another match. And if they want to make this a trilogy match, I'm totally okay with it.
I agree. When I knew this was a serious match? And it wasn't until towards the end of it, really, but it was when Simon knocked Josh's headgear off. I was like, oh, crap.
We love some good symbolism in wrestling, man. When you knock off someone's ring gear, you activated the second wind.
And man, did you. Then he hit him. He hit him with that backbreaker, then his C4 spike. Honestly and truly, I felt like when he did that, I don't think he's done. Literally, I thought there was going to be more after that, because I thought for sure that Simon was going to be like, yeah, just shake it off, and do this some more. I mean, it really was. Because that was just the momentum of this match. It was so like, there's more. There's got to be more. Because, what I loved about this is for anyone who doesn't know the history between these two men, you could feel the history in this match. You could feel that there was this vitriol for one another, in the way it was happening. I mean, it's got my heart pumping right now just talking about it. It was so crazy.
My goodness.
Crazy good.
This was an awesome match. And again, I want to see them I hope Simon sticks around in TNA for a little bit longer, because I would love to see them do another one and then do a rubber match for the end of the trilogy. Because if this is just a preview of what these two could do, I would love them to continue to fight for a little bit more.
Yes.
And honestly, I think right now, this is a good way to keep Josh busy, because he's had prior to his injury, since Josh held that TNA World Championship for such a long time, I don't think it's necessary for Josh to be jumped straight back into the title pictures anytime soon. Because look, he had 2 matches against Ospreay. He got to team up with Zack Sabre Jr. at Final Resolution. He had a baller match against Alex Hammerstone at Hard to Kill. Continue to give Josh really good opponents, and I'm going to continue to be interested in him, even if he's not in the title picture right now.
That's the great thing. I don't think he has to be in the title picture.
I don't think so either. But speaking of people who are probably not going to be in the title picture anytime soon, we move on to our TNA World Championship match underneath No Surrender rules. I'm going to be honest, I was kind of surprised to see this here, because then once this was announced as the next match, I was like, oh my gosh, they're actually going to have the Knockouts Championship match be our semi-main event. And then, of course, we were told at the beginning of the show that the X Division Championship was going to main event the show. It's like, what?
I was a little surprised by that, actually. But I guess I kind of am, but I'm kind of not.
Right. We'll talk about the other 2 matches there, because what we got for our main event, I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, me too, actually.
So, whereas Simon Gotch and Josh Alexander was just pure physical wrestling, like brutality, this was literally no DQ street fight brutality, because Moose and Alex Shelley went to war to try to kill each other. You know what? I'm just going to jump straight into the moment where we got to see visually when Alex Shelley took like the wrench, and when he tied up Moose's fingers in the turnbuckle, and then he used the wrench to tighten the turnbuckle to give that imagery of him crushing Moose's fingers within the turnbuckle. I was just like, that is frightening. Some Final Destination mess. I'm kind of here for it.
Oh, I was very much so. And it's so funny because the second half of this pay-per-view was, I think, better than the first half. Like, way, way better. And because it literally just exponentially, every match got stronger and stronger and stronger.
They elevated it in different ways for each.
And this one was no different. I mean, I knew going into this, Moose was going to retain this. I knew that. We all did. Everybody knew that. All you out there knew that too. But I go back to one of the backstage moments for a second with Shelley and Sabin when Shelley was basically telling Sabin to stay out of it, blah, 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 blah. And I still am like, something's going on between Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. I don't know what it is, but there's a shift happening. And I'm so excited to see in the weeks to come what's going to happen, especially after this match happened and Shelley lost this match. And of course, what happens in the next match too. I'm curious to see where these two go from here on out. But this match, man, Moose is no joke. I mean, neither is Shelley. Don't get me wrong. Alex, he held his own. I thought it was very evenly matched. Yes, these two men were like trying to annihilate one another. I think I could feel that Shelley really wanted that title bad, and he was going to do whatever he had to do to get it. And this is what I love about these types of matches, is that it really kind of brings out the heel in all of us.
But I feel that all wrestling fans have some sort of propensity to violence, whether it be we want to see more physicality in matches, we like street fight matches. In TNA, I already said it before, I love me a Monsters Ball. Monsters Ball are my favorite kind of stipulation matches where violence can happen. But I'm really happy that they utilized something new for this match, and contested under No Surrender, where the only way to win is to
throw in the towel. Mm-hmm.
And even though Shelley lost, I actually think that his defeat made him look strong because Moose went for a spear. Shelley barely got back up afterwards, ready to fight. Then Moose tied a chain around his shoulder and then hit another spear with the chain shoulder. And then he was yelling at Kushida, threatening to do it again. And actually, I'm not mad at Kushida for throwing in the towel at this point, because he's like, no, I'm not trying to get Alex Shelley knocked upside the head with this chain and the spear.
Mm-hmm.
So from a storytelling perspective, even though Kushida threw in the towel for Alex Shelley was ready to put everything he had on the line and was willing to break his body in order to win this championship. So I'm interested to see the directions that both Moose and Alex Shelley go from here, because unless we get one more match at Sacrifice, I think that we have closed the chapter on this feud for now. I think both men are ready to move on to their next challengers or their next feuds and things like that. But man, what a way to end this chapter of the feud.
And I just want to say this match just tells everybody out there, we all have a little heel in us.
I loved it. So prior to our next match, we get our concierge chevalier, whatever you want to call him. And he introduces Ash by Elegance, who is coming out to scout our next match. And so she's here to look at the competition. Why was she here? Well, she was here to watch for our Knockouts World Championship match. We have our challenger, Jazelle Shaw, who is cashing in, which we did get confirmation from our commentary team that she's cashing in her Ultimate X for this match. And it's Jazelle Shaw taking on our current Knockouts World Champion, Jordynne Grace. Now, this match may have only went 10 minutes. I'm going to be completely honest, though. I love me some Jordynne. But this match was all about Jazelle, and I loved it so much. Jazelle had my favorite move of this match when she hit that Spanish fly from the apron onto the floor with Jordynne, where she grabbed her and they both did the Spanish fly onto the apron floor. I was just like, yes. I was like, this match to me, from the moment it started to the moment it ended, was more so to show off truly how great Jazelle can be without interference from the rest of the Chantarage. Like, Jazelle on her own after this match, even though she lost and Jordynne retained the title, now I'm frightened of Jazelle being on her own, because like she held her own against Jordynne and she answered a lot of Jordynne stuff too, which I was like, we actually might see. I was like, nah, she can't lose. But there were moments where Jazelle made me believe. I was like, oh, maybe she will take it from Jordynne. This match pleasantly surprised me, because on paper I was like, well, Giselle's gonna lose, man. This is not gonna be good. But Jazelle proved me wrong, because I was like, oh, maybe she's gonna win this. And there were moments where I was like, well, they're gonna let her win. And Jordynne, what I loved even more is that Jordynne barely was able to beat Jazelle, because she barely got the Grace driver, the Juggernaut driver, in to be able to pin Jazelle. And that was a quick sequence too. She's like, I need to put Jazelle out now, because this is not the same Jazelle I know.
Yeah, it was this. I mean, man, you're right. This, and I love that they did make this all about Jazelle, because I think this was an important match for Jazelle, even though we all knew on paper she was not going to win. But she did win in the fact that I believe now that a solid solo wrestler doesn't need the Chantarage, doesn't need any of those folks. That I think that I've been thinking this for a little while, actually. I've been thinking that Jazelle needs to be her own thing. I mean, I have been feeling that kind of lately. And this just goes to show, even though she did not win the match, she almost won the match. And if I was Jordynne Grace, I would be worried, because I can see down the road, I could see Jazelle taking this title. Like, seriously, after this match, I was like, Jordynne, either you took Jazelle for granted, or Jazelle is just like, bitch, I got it.
See, and what I hope comes of this, because I feel that this match secretly did some work in terms of character dimensions, because this match made me believe there were points where Jazelle was going to win, which means that if TNA, sees what we see, I would actually, okay, I'm gonna put my Booker hat on for a second. Get this thing. Okay, booking hat is on now. We have props here. So hear me out. This is what I would like to see. I don't know if it's going to happen, but this is my perspective. Because this match did a really good job of setting up Jazelle for something in the future, what I would like to see is at Sacrifice, I would actually see, even if it's non-title, I would like to see Jordan versus Ash by Elegance. So that can be the match for Sacrifice. Then I want a rematch between Jordan and Jazelle at Rebellion. And if I'm being honest, I would love to see Jazelle beat Jordan and take the title off of her at Rebellion. Or if we don't want to throw Ash to Jordan quite yet, let's have a triple threat between Jordan, Jazelle, and Ash at Rebellion.
That'd be cool. I'm here for that.
But whatever route TNA decides to take, I hope that at the end of Rebellion, we will see a new Knockouts World Champion Jazelle Shaw, because I think it's time for Jazelle to finally win a championship, because she's been here for almost 2 years at this point.
Yeah.
In the company.
I think they just had to get her out from underneath her entourage people. I really do. I think they needed to separate her and put her as a solo performer. I really do. Because to be honest, and it's all of these wrestlers who have like entourages or whatever you want to call them, henchmen, side whatever. There's so much. They're basically slaves to that. Once you've created that, that's who you are forever. So, and what I love about Jazelle is that in order to advance her story, she literally eliminated each one of them in some way or another, and now has literally stepped out and is said to the world as a solo wrestler. Like, we're going to see her on her own, kicking some serious butt and working her way back to this again. And I agree with you, Mikey, and at least I hope that happens, is that she does take it, and then Jazelle becomes our new knockout world champion eventually down the road. I mean, I don't think right now, because she's just now establishing herself obviously as a solo wrestler, so she's got to build up to that.
But but I hope by the end of Rebellion, I would love to take that title at Rebellion.
Me too. I agree. Totally. That would be
it. Is. And with Ash being in this mix too, has me very intrigued, because you have Jazelle still circling around Jordan. Ash is waiting in the wings. Like, I think this has the potential to be a really good story for the next month or two leading into Rebellion between these three women.
I agree.
So really quickly, the other backstage segment I wanted to make sure that we covered is we got to go backstage real quick. We saw a quick promo from Jake something. So Jake basically says that he's watching the main event tonight between Chris Sabin and Mustafa Ali, because the X Division is not about weight limits, it's about no limits. And whoever walks out of this match tonight as champion better be ready, because Jake wants a chance and wants a piece of that title, which and we're going to talk about the match itself, but I'm ready to see Jake hold the singles title. Like, I think it's his time to win this title.
Yes, I agree. Jake can hold me. I mean, he can hold the title.
But we get to our main event, which is for the X Division Championship. Challenger Mustafa Ali taking on the champion Chris Sabin. I'm burying the lead here. This was my match of the night.
I knew this was your match of the night. I knew it.
God, look, okay.
I knew it.
So let me explain. And we talked about this on the Go Home show. We were robbed of Mustafa Ali at No Mercy, and what would have probably been a really stellar match between him and Dominic Mysterio, because WWE some reason decided to let him go. And so I'm just happy to see Mustafa Ali on my screen again in TNA, which I think Ali is a fantastic wrestler. He's always been, but he's never necessarily gotten the best, fair shake. And for TNA to have him come in for a little bit is awesome. But outside of my bias for Ali, this match was really fantastic. And this is what X Division means to me. You have really good groundwork wrestling. You have some fun high spots, like the head scissors from Sabin to Ali to throw him onto the floor was fantastic. I thought Ali got decapitated when Chris Sabin threw him into the bottom turnbuckle, and it looked like he ate it. I was like, he almost got decapitated. There were high flying moves. Ali was being super heely by being super disrespectful to Sabin. Like when he did like the dog, like kind of like kicking dirt after they go to the bathroom towards Sabin. Yeah. And from an in-ring psychology perspective,
I figured that he was going to win as I was watching it. I was like, Ali's going to walk away with this. I think it's starting to feel that way. especially since the Alex Shelley thing happened earlier. I was like, okay, Saban's going to lose this because something's going on between he and Shelley, and I don't know what it is yet, and I'm curious to find out what it is. I was excited that Mustafa Ali is now the X Division champion. I think that's fantastic. I'm glad that he's back in the spotlight because I really like him as a wrestler, and I love all of his promo stuff. It's super fun. He's all around just really, really fun and really good. So yeah, and I thought this match was pretty on point. It was pretty on point, and I liked it. I really liked it. It was almost my match of the night was Alexander and God. That match just, it hurt me, and I loved it. But it was very, very close. This one was actually, I was like, maybe this one, because this one was really on point. I mean, it was really, really on point, and I loved watching. This is my first true time watching Ali wrestle. I've seen him in some other little things, but this is the first time I've seen him like wrestle. And I mean, he's good, and I like him. I like his style. I like what he's got going on. Yeah, I like the arrogance. I kind of like that aspect that's very juxtaposed, which is very juxtaposed to Saban. Even though here recently we've been seeing Saban kind of turning kind of heely lately.
He punched a dude in the face 2 weeks away.
Yeah.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah, he punched a dude in the face. I was just like, what is happening right now? So I really liked the dynamic in this match between these two men. I really did. And like I said, it was very close. I was literally had to flip a coin. Like literally I had to flip a coin.
Right.
Had it landed on tails, this would have been my match of the night.
It really was. And honestly, I can't fault you for picking Simon Gotch and Josh Alexander, because to echo what you said, the second half of this pay-per-view, all these matches had the potential to be like match of the night, because the last half of this pay-per-view, oh my goodness, was just great. Everyone had their stuff. I love this match a lot, as No Surrender goes off the air, which means we have reached the end of our pay-per-view. So, Will, I guess the last thing that we have to do now is let's give our final ratings. So we had 10 whole matches, 2 on the pre-show, 8 on the main card. Here at the Bi-Conics, we like to use the empanada scale. So out of 10 empanadas, what do you give TNA's No Surrender?
Okay, so I scored it pretty high originally, and then I went back and kind of looked at the makeup of everything. So originally I had given it an 8, and now I'm more of a 7.5 only, and the only reason is because, well, I thought the pre-show matches were kind of and I thought the overallness of it was good. The second half was obviously way better. Now, if I could break it in 2, I would give freaking second half of this like a 9, because it was just each one just built up momentum, but I'd probably put it like 7.75. It was a good pay-per-view. I enjoyed it. Could it have been stronger? Yeah, it could have, but who am I to judge things like this, to be honest? My 7.5 is somebody else's 10. I really enjoyed it. I really did. I just thought that there was some logistic issues, and that's kind of what knocked it down for me a little bit. And of course, the PCO con being where it was, I don't think it should have been in the pre-show. The system and the time splitters or whatever, they should have been in the actual main card. I just, and then I thought, the Eric Young Kazarian fight was a little mushy in the middle. I mean, it was, it really didn't start kicking off, really, I think, till after PCO and Con. After that match, then it was just like uphill, like, boo, like into the moon. I mean, it was so good. So, yeah, I'd say about 7.75 for me. Empanadas. Even though I like tamales better. But
I love that. I graded it a little bit higher, but not by much. I gave this an 8 out of 10 for me, if I were to give a letter equivalent, because Andrew's not here. So I gave the show a B-, because like you said, if I divide the show in half, including the pre-show and the first half of the card, I would have given a 7. And then the second half from Simon Gotch, Josh Alexander onwards was a 9 out of 10. So so combine that together, I was like, give it a middle of 8 for me. So obviously I knew it wasn't going to reach our really high ratings that Hard to Kill was, you know, because 9.5, 9.8, 9.7, 5s, like that's still the highest rated pay-per-view so far this year for me.
Yeah,
and it's only February, which is really crazy as you see. But I still think, you know, for as much as I was worried to see where this pay-per-view would go, you know, since this is the first live thing post Scott D'Amore being let go from the company, I was pleasantly surprised. The talent was great. I had a fun time. I'm super happy to see one of the titles did change hands today, so which makes me excited of where we build this feud. But I'm excited to see where this leads, because it's going to be a quick turnaround because we have 2 weeks until Sacrifice.
Right.
We'll be back in 2 weeks to review Sacrifice. Spoiler alert. But unfortunately, that does bring us to the end of another Grapple Gurus review. You know, I'm sad that we are done, but fear not, wrestling nerds out there. Stay tuned tomorrow because you will see my lovely face back once again. We'll be tagging in the WWE boys because me, the professor, and we're not sure if it's going to be Mini or Senor Luchadon who shows up to the pay-per-view review, but the three of us are going to be covering the Elimination Chamber review tomorrow night. So you get 2 for the price of 1. So make sure to come on back because we have a lot of opinions about the Elimination Chamber. And I'm just going to give a little preview. We are going to be all over the place tomorrow night because we're going to be fighting. It's going to be great because we had such differing opinions, but I think we all agreed what our favorite match of the night was. And we all agreed that's the only thing we agree on. So if you want to figure out what that is, you got to tune in tomorrow. But if you can't stop by for the Elimination Chamber review, you can catch an edited review as well as everything else we have here at the YouTube channel. You can follow us on social medias at BC WrestlePod. Once again, you can take us on the go if you can't sit and watch our beautiful faces. We have audio versions of everything. And, you know, we're trying to do this live stream thing. It's crazy. And then you can come see us in person at New Jersey WrestleCon, May 18th, May 19th. It's going to be a really good time. Me and Will are going to get on out of here. It is, well, I mean, it's not necessarily late, but we got to get ready for work and things like that. But thanks for tuning in to another live stream review for the Grapple Gurus. As I said, I will be back tomorrow with the WWE boys, and you can check Will out later this week when he and a returning Andrew help me cover NXT and TNA this week, so I'm super excited. But we're going to get on out of here. From myself, Will, Andrew, and the rest of the Bi-Conics boys, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, stay Bi-Conic, you guys, gals, non-binary pals, he, she, theys, and gays of the internet. We will see you tomorrow for another live edition of the Grapple Gurus. But until then,
thank you so much for tuning in to another Vibe Tribe production. What's going to happen next time? Well, you're going to have to tune in to find out. But until then, remember, take care of yourself, love one another, and as always, make sure that you keep the good times rolling. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you next time.